and welcome back to Wisdom Talks. Today we're talking about neurodiversity in the workplace, and I'm joined by Rachel Luke, who is our digital counsellor and for live chat at Health Assured. So when people don't want to talk on the telephone and they want to message in, they can speak to Rachel. That's a unique role, isn't it? It's absolutely fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your job that you do at Health Assured.
Yeah, so we deal with the live chats, and there's a lot of neurodivergent people that contact us on live chat. So like some people might not feel comfortable speaking on the phone or having that like social interaction, but they feel more comfortable expressing how they feel over message. So it can really help people have access to digital support as well, and just understand that there is still support out there. They don't have to ring up on the phone or reach out on video.
More comfortable, isn't it? Yeah, we're finding that as well now, that a lot of people just like to really just live chat rather than telephone in. And many people are adopting that approach, aren't they? So you're busy on the line then, I would imagine, with lots and lots of questions and support needed through the chat.
Yeah, we get a whole range of stuff. We get like neurodiversity, we get like domestic abuse, we get like loads and loads of like varied things. So it's really been really interesting experience to work there.
I think what we've done on Wisdom Talks is we talk about issues that people might have in their home life, personal life, work life. We speak about that, and we've brought therapists in and counsellors like yourself. And then we talk about solutions of things that can help them. But we're unique today, aren't we? Because not only do you help neurodiverse people, and not only are you an online counsellor, but you're also neurodiverse yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Would you like to tell people when you got diagnosed and what really and what you've been diagnosed with?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed as autistic like 3 years ago, and I also got diagnosed with PMDD about a year ago. So that was like a really big learning curve. And a big part of it is learning to trust how I feel and what I think, and meeting my own needs rather than trying to match like a stereotype.
So talk me through, your earlier life. So you've got diagnosed, what age, if you don't, do you mind saying that on camera?
Yeah, I'm 31, so it was like 3 years ago.
Okay. So 3 years ago, that's a long time to go through life, isn't it? Without having and wondering what's going on. So explain to me when what things were happening, because before this, we started talking today, you mentioned that you'd had counselling yourself as well.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking me through that journey of the emotions and what happened and what got you to counselling?
Yeah, no worries. So in relation to like struggles also when I was younger, I really struggled socially. So I didn't really have social anxiety, but I did feel like I'd be a bit delayed in picking up social cues and things like that. But luckily I've had, there was a bit of bullying in high school, but I've had, really good friends. So it's not something I'm massively focused on. It's like an issue. I was just like, it's just the way I am, and it's okay. And then, because no one really spoke about it back then either, it was all about men, and I think that's quite common with neurodiversity. It's a lot of it's about men, and women's experiences are different.
Yeah.
So I had counselling when I was 16, and that was CBT, and then I also had it when I was 24, which helped me learn to understand myself and meet my needs, because I was a bit of a people pleaser, and it was a real like learning curve to help me actually listen to my feelings and like my judgments and my values, and it helped me like change careers to become a counsellor, because I realised I really value supporting people and value seeing people actually go through the journey that I went on and understand themselves better.
And come out positive at the other side and understand. So let me take you back to CBT. Would you like to explain just for the listeners what that is because we've abbreviated it?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, because a lot of people don't know the abbreviation of things. So
it's cognitive behavioural therapy.
Okay, and what type of things did you do, and what did you have to do to help you?
It was just like you go through different thought patterns, and then you'd come up with different behaviours. Yeah. So like I realised that I was quite an active, I'm quite an active person. So like I realised if I sit down for a long time, I'm quite restless. So then I would, instead of just being restless, I would go out for a walk. So it was just kind of managing your own behaviour and taking a bit of accountability, I guess, for your own kind of well-being. That's kind of what I learned from that experience.
And when you went for the counselling, where did you get referred from the counselling? Was it from the doctors, or was it through your parents?
It was my mum's work.
Was it? It was work, yeah.
Yeah.
and it enabled you to get the access to the counselling and support you needed.
Yeah, because I was only 16 at the time. Yeah, so it allowed me to have that support at that time. Yeah.
Okay. And so we saw an improvement then, but you talk about again having counselling later on, but you still haven't been diagnosed at this point, have you? So you're having CBT, and then you've had counselling at 16. What age did you have counselling again then after that?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah.
And what happened then? Did the same thing CBT or did...
No, it was person-centred, like very person-centred, where it's very much focused on how you feel and what you want. And it was just a massive learning curve. I started getting into yoga where you listen to your body, you listen to how you feel, and it was just like a real shift in terms of realising how important it is to actually listen to yourself. Yeah. And the mental health impacts if you don't.
Yeah. That was what we've learned in these podcasts, actually. It is very much mind over matter, in that you control your mind and the thoughts that you have. Yeah. And if you're not controlling them in the right way, listening to them, that's when, things can, I think implode for some people. So you had that counselling then, and you again, still not diagnosed. Yeah. So what happened then? So where did you get the diagnosis, and what happened, and what led up to that?
I was just curious, really. I'm really interested in psychology. I'm doing a master's in psychology at the moment, and since COVID, there was a lot of talk about neurodiversity, and I related a lot to it. So I just thought it'd be interesting to know if that's how, if these experiences, I'm not picking up social cues, and certain things that I've experienced can be explained through a diagnosis. It would just be interesting to learn about myself in that way. Yeah. So when I got diagnosed, I had a group, a group of meeting with other people who got diagnosed at the same time. They're all adults, and it was funny how we experienced really similar things, like having to turn down the music to open the washing machine if I'm feeling a bit burnt out, and just little things where it was just really interesting to experience.
Little adjustments in life to help you on your journey, really, and those people were sharing that with you. Do you still keep in contact with those people?
No, it was just an online thing, but it was just interesting to thing we are adults, and people find their own ways of managing themselves over time. So you don't need a diagnosis to help yourself. I think is what the message I got from that was that we're all doing loads of stuff to help ourselves, because it's just you find ways to deal with stuff, don't you? I guess.
Yeah. But there's so many different personalities in the world anyway, isn't there? And it's finding out how to manage those personalities. Now, we'll talk about those little methods that you can use in your personal life, but in the work life, we've got employers listening here today, and we've got employees. Yeah. And what can, I talk about, when I talk about neurodiversity, and I talk about awareness, because like you say, some people haven't been diagnosed later on in life, but there are triggers, and there are things that might trigger things. And I talk about, for example, if there's a busy gangway, moving that person away from that. And music as well, it can be irritating for some people. Yeah. And smells as well. So I like fragrance, but for some people that's awful for some people, isn't it? So have you got any tips for employers of ways that they can implement things within the workplace that would help any of their neurodiverse or staff, or other staff as well?
Yeah, I'll probably say keeping it kind of a rule for everyone, so not making people feel singled out. So if it's to do with smells, for example, just having a rule of the thumb not to have strong perfumes, strong smells in the office. Yeah. Just keep it inclusive generally, because I think there'll still be people who might have neurodivergent needs, but they might not have a diagnosis. Yeah. And it's also encouraging people that do have a diagnosis, or are more aware of themselves in that way, may feel comfortable to approach you and say, oh, actually, this is what I need, or I might need to go into a separate room to work today because I'm feeling overstimulated, or is it okay if I have a voice recording of this, or asking for their needs and making people feel comfortable to ask for that support. Yeah, I think it's a big part of support in the workplace.
I think that's the word I was looking for, actually, the words overstimulated, where it's too much, the surroundings too much, and what we can do about that. So that quiet space is one of them, a peaceful place for somebody just to go away from all the noise and babble, if you like. Yeah. But and you've got a good point there, to make it inclusive, like I said, I think to say to anybody if you're feeling like that, rather than saying if you're a neurodiverse person.
Exactly.
And one thing that my background is employment law. So one of the things that we have is a neurodiversity policy. We're not saying, here you go. We're actually saying if you are neurodiverse and you want some support, please approach us and we can implement things to help you in everyday work. We spoke about social media before, didn't we? And you mentioned about social media and people talking about autism on social media. Do you want to share with everybody what you actually said to me?
Yeah, no problem. So since the pandemic, I think there's been more awareness of neurodiversity, and I think people see these people online who are almost trying to meet the stereotype, or and I feel like it makes people who don't meet the stereotype to a T don't feel validated, and I think it makes some people kind of try to match the stereotype more than they would without that kind of influence. And I think it's bringing people away from themselves and their needs. And it's like, well, how do I feel? What do I want? What are my needs? And thinking about them, like, it's important to think about yourself rather than trying to get lost in that kind of narrative of it is like, it is your whole identity kind of thing.
It's so different, so diverse, isn't it? There's such a wide spectrum, isn't it? It's not, using the phrase, there's not one size that fits all, if you want to use that phrase. But there isn't, is there? So if you're looking on social media and you're thinking, well, I don't think I am neurodiverse because that's what they're saying I should look out for.
Exactly.
Everybody is different, aren't they? But it's finding those techniques, I think, that help you personally and find that works for you. Like you were talking with that group, they shared those techniques.
Yeah.
Is there any that stood out to you that helped you in your journey, in work, in home life? What do you do with your techniques and help that you have for your neurodiversity?
Oh, so when I was younger, I was really kind of set on routines. If my routine changes, I'd find it quite stressful. But since I got diagnosed and read more about autism, I learned that it's okay not to follow a routine. So day to day, I don't really follow a strict routine, and if I feel that need to, it's like, okay, I don't need to. I'll be okay if I don't follow a routine. What do I need right now? What do I want to do right now? It's even down to a varied diet. So there's a lot of safe foods with autism. So it's instead of thinking, right, I'm going to make the same thing and have it every day, it's like, okay, I want to have a varied diet, so I'm going to have different things. And it's putting myself out of my comfort zone. I think that's something that's really helped me, is be like, okay, I don't have to stay in my comfort zone. And the more I put myself out of my comfort zone, the more comfortable I was with doing that. And it took time and discipline, but it really helped me kind of think about my actual needs, and that helped with the PMDD as well, where it's for 2 weeks of the month I am going to struggle more with my energy levels, and if I don't get a good night's sleep and things like that. But it's not kind of restricting my life too much. It's I can still do my exercise and do things, but not kind of putting barriers in place for myself. Because I think that's what a diagnosis can sometimes do, is make people put barriers in place for themselves. And it's no, I might struggle with my energy levels, but I can still do something during the day, but I might get an early night, and that's okay.
I think what you've done is you've trained your mind there, haven't you? So if you hadn't trained your mind and sort of stepped out of your boundary, out of your comfort zone and said, look, see, it is okay to do that. You could have just stuck in that routine and you could have got into where people, I think, have this perception that for somebody who has autism, it's very easy to just get into that routine and stick to that routine. What you've done is you've trained your mind to just go, right, we'll try that today. And it's going to be okay. Nothing bad's going to happen. It's fine to do that. And you've taught that. And I think maybe that therapy might have helped that CBT therapy. Do you think? Or is it
probably more the person-centered, I think.
Really?
It's honouring how you feel and what you need in that moment, I think.
Okay. That's so the person. So say that again. It's the
person-centered.
Person-centered. Do you want to explain that a little bit more, just for people that are listening? About,
it's the type of counselling that I was trained in, and it's basically you're supporting someone understand themselves better. So all the theory and everything around it is around helping people live more an authentic life. And that's what's really helped me in terms of managing my mental health and learning more about my neurodivergence.
Yeah. And you mentioned, actually, I've written it down, PMDD. For the people listening, please tell me what that means and how it impacts on you.
Yeah, so it's a premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Yeah.
So it's where, for me personally, it means my energy, like my mood and like my sleep's impacted for 2 weeks of the month before my period. So in me, I notice if it's 2 weeks before, my energy levels drop. And I struggle with sleep a bit more, but it just means I have to look after myself better. And it can come with a lot of like negative thinking about like negative assumptions, I'd say, about yourself and other people. And I've really learned to manage that over the years and be like, okay, well, it's not always fact. And I think CBT can help with people with that, and also you know, different types of therapy where you're learning to trust your gut and how you feel rather than kind of rolling with the negativity.
Yeah. And did you get diagnosed with that before autism or
after?
Did you?
Yeah, because it was. I thought I had a back injury, so it's another kind of layer to it where it does impact like physical abilities, because it means I'm more prone to physical injury. And I think I've not really read much about it. I do think it's due to inflammation in the body, so I think I'm more prone to like physical injuries. And I kept having like a back pain for 2 weeks of the month, but it kept going for like 2 weeks. And then I had to look into it a bit more, and I really related to a lot of what was going on, especially when I look back over my life when I started puberty. And I've just learned kind of ways to manage like my mental health over the years. But I was just curious to get a diagnosis, really, just to see like if it actually is that, or whether there's actually something else going on.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Do you think that because you are autistic, do you think that you're more aware of that as well? I'm asking that question because I don't know about PMDD. I don't know about that. Do you think you're more aware and more sensitive to that, and you know that you could see that there was something else going on? Do you think, or more bodily aware?
I heard the term PMDD in a autistic women's Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I've not really heard of it before. So, and a lot of neurodivergent women who have autism and ADHD do tend to have PMDD as well.
Okay.
I don't know the percentage, but it's pretty high.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting as well, where it is a really common amongst neurodivergent women as well.
Well, I think you've given a couple of answers there to people that may be listening today. I'm really interested in this podcast because it's about neurodiversity, you know, and your personal experiences as well, which is, thank you, by the way, for that, because you're sharing really, really personal stuff there that you've been through, and I really appreciate that. But I can't tell you how many people you can help listening today. You know, it's for them to maybe seek a diagnosis or maybe support even when they're struggling, and to have, you know, to have that support and to be able to ring, or like yourself, digital counsellor, live chat, you know, to actually access that and get support. In the workplace, let's go back to the workplace now. If I was in the workplace and I'm now thinking I've got autism, and some of the things I'm seeing makes me think maybe I have, or maybe as we get in work, somebody said something that's made me think about it.
Yeah.
What's the first approach for that person? Where do you think they need to go to begin with? Do you think their team leader, their boss, to go to the Health Assured, you know, the employee assistance program? What would you think would be the first port of call to raise awareness or go to their GP? What would you do?
It depends on the person. I think if they feel like they have certain needs that aren't being met at work because they think they've got like a neurodivergent condition, then I would encourage people to speak to their workplace to see, because you don't need like a diagnosis to have reasonable adjustments. You know, if you want, and encourage them to just learn a bit about it, a bit more, do some reading, look at stuff online, speak to people, and explore that first, I think, before reaching out to the GP. I think some people go on a waiting list and just say, all right, I'm waiting now until I get diagnosed. We hear that a lot on like live chat, where it's like they're almost waiting for someone else to tell them about themselves, and it's like, yeah, you've not been diagnosed, but you can still learn ways to help yourself in the meantime, because some waiting lists like 4 years.
Wow.
So I think, you know, reaching out for like counselling, reaching out on the helplines can really help you just normalise your experience and help you think about your needs. Because whether you've got a diagnosis or not, you're still the same person.
Yeah.
You don't change. It's just having that kind of more awareness about how your mind works, really.
And if you don't speak to your employer, you're waiting 4 years for the diagnosis to then speak to your employer. So it's better just to go to your employer and say, I feel like I need some workplace adaptations that just for me, would it be possible? And I think many employers would be accommodating, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
help
I think
you.
so.
Yeah. So let's talk about work and recruitment. And, I think that people are becoming more aware, and employers are becoming more aware of neurodiversity in the workplace and the benefits of having a varied workforce, I think. And we mentioned earlier on about the advantages of neurodiversity in the workplace. What do you think they are?
I think neurodivergent people are creative. I think they're more likely to think outside the box, and a lot of the activist community are neurodivergent. There's quite a lot of research on that, so it means like more like to question things and think outside the box and come up with new ideas and not do things like the way that you would traditionally do. So I think that's a really important thing, and I think a lot of neurodiversity, and specifically into like autism and ADHD, is pattern recognition.
Yeah.
So noticing like common trends and common themes, and that can be really good in like research, for example, or tech. And in counselling, noticing like patterns in what someone's saying. And there has been sessions where I've noticed like a pattern, which I thought was obvious. They're like, oh, I've never noticed that before. So it's like, I feel like my mind is kind of drawn to patterns, but that can be really helpful in a lot of workplaces. And there is like hyper focus, which can sometimes mean people don't eat and get lunches. So maybe it's about employers like making sure people actually do have breaks during these moments. But during those times, people get a lot of like really good quality work done as well.
Yeah, so I worked with a company actually many years ago, and it was a tech company, and they were games designers, and they just didn't take breaks because they were doing their passion as well, and they were not having the lunches, and they were working over. So we've got to remember that people do have, the mental health side of it is that to make sure people are taking the breaks, to being well fed and finishing work when they should, or the right to disconnect as well, and making sure and saying you don't go on your laptop after a certain time. And because they saw it as a hobby really as well as work, and get really passionate about it. So the employer had actually specifically asked us to come up with a solution for this, and that was to manage the hyper focused part of autism.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it? But you talk about ADHD there as well, and managing that. And I know that that there's different ways of managing that. Do you have any techniques for ADHD? Do you hear it? Do you get what sort of advice do you give people that are talking to you when it comes to having ADHD?
I encourage them to focus on what they can focus on in the here and now. So quite a bit of ADHD is perfectionism, and it can cause a lot of overwhelm. And it's encouraging them to focus on the day and the here and now. So time blocking can be really helpful. So and reminders for each hour. So you'll just break your day down into small chunks. And if it's like we get a lot of students, so say if it's like an assignment, it's like breaking the assignment down into really small steps and then spreading that over a schedule and then setting reminders for those tasks. So it's almost like the overwhelm's kind of being managed to really breaking the task down and scheduling it out over a long period.
And it's funny you should say that because I know that you've got some work you've got to hand in for your masters tonight.
Yeah.
So you're focusing on that, aren't you? And when you're focusing on something like that, and you've got to get it in this evening.
Yeah.
Does it sort of move everything and does it shift everything to the back of your mind, and all you can do is think about that, but rather than focus on the day?
Sometimes, it can be like that because I know I've got to get it done today.
Yeah.
But I do use mindfulness quite a lot as a way to manage that. Like I'm talking to you, so I'll focus on like I'm really thinking about what's going on right here, right now, and just bringing it back to now.
Yeah.
And I think with like ADHD, I think it really helped like just scheduling those breaks, scheduling self-care, because burnouts, especially in relation to hyperfocus, is really common for ADHD.
Yeah.
So it's really making sure you're scheduling that self-care.
Yeah.
As well.
Can I just ask you? I think you're an absolute asset to the company. I'm not asking you. I want to tell you. I think you're an absolute asset, especially as a digital counsellor on live chat, because you can really emphasize with anybody who, and many people will be contacting you. I know hundreds and hundreds of people contact you about feeling that they're neurodiverse, they have autism, they're ADHD, Asperger. Do they say, I don't know if we use the words Asperger's anymore. I think that.
No, some people do though. Yeah.
But I think you're a real asset because you can put yourself in their shoes and offer that advice. And, you know, that's incredible. I want to say good luck for your dissertation for tonight and finishing it off, and I truly believe that you will.
Thank you.
And what we do, I just want to, 2 questions I want to ask you actually, which is just the unsolicited questions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, one's I'm asking you for a statement, the other's a question. I just want to ask you, when you're feeling overwhelmed and you want to think about something that's really makes you happy, what do you think about?
Oh, that's a good question. I think about like just the simple stuff, like being out in nature and watching sunsets. Like if I've had like overwhelm with mental health, like sunsets and being in nature, it's just something that's really, really helped me. Yeah. It just, I don't know, it's just something about like watching sunsets, like listening to the birds sing, and you know, just like little things like that. It can really just help ground you, and I think that really helps me. Yeah. And the other question I'm going to ask you, because on all of these podcasts, what we do is we ask you for your words of wisdom. So, and you know, message that you want to give to people that are listening. Do you have any words of wisdom you'd like to share with people? Yeah, I would say don't apologise for being who you are. I think that's been a big part of my learning curve in relation to neurodiversity and all that kind of stuff, and figuring out my needs and what I need. It's like, don't apologise for being who you are. Obviously, you've got to still respect people. You can't use the neurodiversity to treat others with disrespect. But it is making sure that you're not kind of suppressing yourself or hiding yourself or being like high masking, and just trusting the process of life, really.
Be who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
No, thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate you being on the podcast today and sharing your personal experiences as well. I you know, thank you very much for that, because I'm sure that it will help so many people out there listening. And thank you very much, and good luck with your dissertation. Thank you. Okay.